Sian, welcome. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for being my guest for this podcast today. So what I'd like to do is begin, as with all my guests, by asking you to talk a little bit about the major turning point in your life that has led you to the life you live now.
And that's such a big question. Such a big question, because there's been so many turning points that, you know, all of them seem major, but I suppose I can lock it down to I was homeless for 7 years, right? And I ended up at one point in a house that was a squat, and I was just waiting to die. I was being sick blood. I was starving. I was just lying there saying, if you finish with me, God, just, you know, get on with it. And this, out of the haze of all this madness came this guy, and he said, what are you doing here, Sian? And I looked at him and I couldn't even remember who he was. And I was like, you know, waiting to die. Why? And he said, I'm going to come back for you. And I just said, yeah, whatever. And he left. And then he did come back. He come back a couple of weeks later, and he said, I've asked my flatmates and they said that you should come and stay with us. And this wasn't just a random guy. So when I was first homeless, it was at 15 years old. His mother was my headmistress, and she had brought me into her home for Christmas so that I wasn't on the streets at 15 for Christmas, right? And so that's where I knew him from. And that's why he was shocked to see me there, like years later, so depleted. And I moved into his kitchen corner, and he gave us a sofa, fold out sofa bed in the kitchen corner, him and his mates. And I saw him living a normal life. And even though I was in severe pain every day and still being sick, I was like, well, I'm not dead. I didn't die yet. So maybe I should learn how to live. And that's when I made a conscious choice. Okay, I've been through the mill, as it were, but maybe I should learn how to live now. So that was a massive turning point in me choosing to be alive instead of choosing to just let life squash me. I was homeless for 7 years, from the age of 15 to 22. And then after that, I mean, I wasn't homeless per se. I moved to different places, but that was my homeless experience. But then I decided to become an entrepreneur because I had no education. So I was like, what can I do? I tried to go to university and to a sailing college because I saw their brochure in a doctor's office and it just looked like a good life. They were in the sunshine in Barbados sailing, and I was like, I want to live that. If I'm not dead, then I want to do that, right? So I wrote to 200 charities and trusts and asked for support in order to become a windsurfing instructor with this academy that's on the Isle of Wight. And I was refused. I got many letters saying, yeah, enjoy windsurfing, but we're not paying for it, kind of attitude. So I closed the brochure, and on the back was a picture of HRH Princess Royal. So I wrote to Buckingham Palace and I said I could do with a hand. You know, I said my story, what I'd lived through, what I'd done to improve my life, and how I just kept hitting this wall where I was not being accepted or supported in any way. And it is actually, the business was a not-for-profit organization. And so she wrote to them and said, this is a loophole in your charity status. You need to get this girl in. And they got me in. They flew me and my son, who was around about 5 at the time, down to the Isle of Wight to meet Princess Anne. I have a picture of us. My son made her a beautiful picture. And I got a scholarship to train as a windsurfing instructor, rescue diver, and overseas resort management. And then I came back to Scotland and I realized I'd made a big mistake. The water was freezing in Scotland.
Coming back to Scotland was a mistake.
Well, no, learning to do water sports and then thinking that you can do that in Scotland where it's freezing. I was like, So I had raised money for this scholarship to pay for childcare costs by pole dancing and lap dancing. And so I got back to Scotland, freezing water, and I was like, well, I can pole dance and I can instruct. So that's what I have. That's the tools I have in my hands. What am I going to do about it? You know? And so I had a laptop and I printed off tiny little flyers and I put them through doors, and I got myself a pole and I started pole fitness classes. And then I was selling pole fitness classes in a high rise in a council estate. Now that is a marketing job, you know? So I got my first 5 clients. And I remember our council house was bare floors. I didn't even have a fridge. I had a cool box with ice bags in it. And I got a grant from the government to get carpets. And I carpeted where the people would come and do their lessons. But the rest of the house was like a DOS house, basically. And me and my son were sleeping on blow up mattress. And I gave them the best class that they ever had. And they just raved about it. And then, so I had 6 customers. And then life always brings you what you need next if your eyes are open to it, right? And then suddenly a pole dancing studio became available in the high street of Aberdeen where I lived. And I was like, it's a sign. So I quickly got in the pole dancing studio, and I had just enough money for 1 month's rent. And then I was like, I'm in. And the guy said to me, and I'll come back next week for the deposit. And I was like, I don't have the deposit. So I started doing cleaning jobs, gardening jobs, sewing jobs, like anything. I was like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. You know, I raised the money. And then the next month I had half of the rent, and I had a choice. Do I buy window signs and advertise my business? Or do I keep the money tight and try and make enough for the rent? So I bought the window signs. I spent that half amount of rent on the window signs. And I wrote to a lifestyle magazine in the area and invited the whole team for a pole dancing lesson. And I again gave them the best lesson they ever had. And then they wrote an article about it in their lifestyle magazine, and then people started coming. And then the rent was paid. And then 7 years later, I'd won 2 awards, published a book, had 6 instructors. I'd run the first Scottish championships, pole championships that has ever happened. I had world champions, the world's most famous pole dancer, training at my school and coming and training us, you know. So yeah, it just shows you.
That's amazing. So it's interesting, the attitude towards, you know, investing in your business compared to holding on, you know, and I think the abundance mindset, you know, it feels like somewhere inside you already have that mindset that, you know, to grow things you need to invest and not hold on to stuff.
I think because of my street days, and like from one day to the next, you never had it. And what I missed out in that story is I actually went backpacking around Asia and Australia with my son when he was 3.
Wow.
And that was like rucksack, buggy, baby, I'm gone, right? Because his father was abusive. And I said to him, do you think Australia is far enough? And I dipped, you know, and not knowing and seeing that journey. You don't know the next step, but if you have faith that it's there and you keep stepping, things arrive. Sometimes it felt like there was no ground going to be under my feet, and I was in the middle of a Thailand with a 3-year-old. And that when my foot hit the ground, whatever I needed was there, you know, and that's how life can be. Yeah.
That's
so it's probably street life.
I know, I was giving me goosebumps. And I think what I particularly find so impressive is that, you know, to take that attitude when you're on your own, because you have no other choice, perhaps, you know, like when you said when you're on the streets, you know, you live each day as it comes, and really it's not like, you know, you've got much to lose because you don't have much.
Yeah.
But to be able to take that same attitude even when you had your little boy, to me, talk about that to me. You know, what how did you overcome the sort of the usual feelings of, my God, I'm responsible for this little person, you know? Did you have any of those doubts, and how did you overcome some of them?
If you raise a child in a bubble of its own environment, then that's all it will know. And then when it comes and meets different cultures, different people, the child is immediately protective, and there's anxiety, and there's anxiety and fear of the unknown, right? Whereas I walked with my child, and I knew the minute I found out I was pregnant that I was going to give this child a life that I had not seen, right? It was not going to see what I had lived. And so that's how I managed it, because people have said to me, how could you just pack up with a rucksack and a 2-year-old and travel across Asia and Australia for 6 months, right? And I questioned them, how could I stay as a single mother with trauma, mental health issues, locked in a small flat in Scotland with the rain beating off the window, with no money for a good amount of food, and stress, and have my child in that environment too, locked in that confinement? That was more scary to me.
So I've got so many questions coming up. I'm trying to contain myself and not get over excited. Something you said earlier about, this almost guardian angel who turned up, just when you were feeling like there's no point to this life, and then gave you a home and a glimpse of what life could be. Can we go back to that particular experience? And when you said, I'm going to choose to live, can you talk us through that? What was that like? What did it mean for you at the time?
Well, a motto that I live by, is when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And you never know what shape that teacher's going to come in, right? It could be the homeless dude on the street. That could be your greatest teacher at that moment in your life, if you allow it to be, right?
Yeah.
And so he was someone that, when I prayed to God, basically before he came, saying, just take me. If you finish with me, like, let's just do this. What came instead was an earth teacher, was a person to say, no, come with us instead. So death wasn't for me. And I was taken to the kitchen corner, and he taught me how to live a normal life, a normal average life, And so this has happened time and time again. And sometimes there's been lessons, like when I was on the streets and I was trying to upgrade my life, people on the streets were like, you can't go. And all I saw in their eyes was the fear of, don't leave me here. But I'm too scared to take the risk that it is going to take to up level my life, So look for them teachers. Look for them, because they always show up. Keep looking, and pray for what you want, and then look for it and work towards it, and it comes.
Yeah. And it sounds, when you say it, it sounds so simple and so obvious, doesn't it? That you pray and then the teacher will appear. But what is it inside us that we need to awaken to recognize that this is that teacher? Because as you said, it could just be in the form of someone very ordinary and not exactly the answer we were looking for, but if we allow ourselves to experience it, we'll realize, oh my God, that is exactly what I needed.
Or in the time scale you want it.
Or the time scale.
Oh, it's never in the time scale you want it, is it?
That's right. That's right. So how would you advise somebody, or how did you do it? Maybe advice will come later, but how did you do it?
This is a scary one, because the way to be in tune with this is to create inner peace in yourself. Is forgiveness, is gratitude, is gentle compassion towards yourself and others. If you're not compassionate towards yourself, you can't be to others. Yeah. If you're not listening to yourself, because there's inner demons. I've actually got a poem called Inner Demons that I wrote at one time when I was purging all this pain and trauma. And if you're not quiet inside, if you're mixed up and messed up inside, your life reflects that. And if you're not listening to yourself, you can't hear what's coming. You can't see it. It can be right in front of your face and you'll miss it. But I understand, because of the journey I've been on, it can be dark and scary as hell to be quiet with yourself, to face what you've been running away from internally, emotionally. So I have used the Samaritans. The Samaritans is a phone line to support anybody at any time, day or night. If you are learning to take time with yourself, there's first of all a really easy meditation where you think the word love in on your in-breath and think the word peace. So you're breathing love into yourself and breathing peace into your life. and just practice that. You can just put your phone on 5 minutes, breathe in love for yourself and breathe peace into your life and start creating the calm. And then you get all the drama that you've been running away from, the pain, the whatever it is you're carrying starts to come up. And at that point, you need to get help. And if you've got no money, then Samaritans are free. Offload that, and then you'll be stronger for another day. You know, get a counselor, get a coach, get people to support you to up level. And then what happens is you have clearness. You have a space of clearness that if you fill with that breathing in love, fill it with love, fill it with light, compassion, peace. And then the darkness can't live in love. It can't live in peace and compassion.
Yes.
And we all need to do this on the planet so that we can find compassion for our planet. And that's where the work in sustainability, I'm the human aspect of sustainability. I'm saying I work with business owners, entrepreneurs, micro businesses. The world, we have the power to change the way business is done. Collectively, we're 98% of business, but we're also individually on our own in silos. Can you imagine that collective power of people coming together, sharing expertise like you're allowing me to share today on this podcast, so that someone knows the first steps to inner peace? And that's how you see the lessons, and that's how you start to get things that you're just like, oh my God, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
So
inner
you
peace.
went from so going back to your business trajectory, you know, you were talking about your pole dancing business, which went from strength to strength. So talk us through how you got from that to what you're doing now, which is much more about sustainability.
Well, as you know from this podcast so far, I was a hustler and fighter. That's how I survived, right? So I came into this business ownership fighting, and I overworked. I overworked to the point I was hospitalized with exhaustion, and they said my organs were about to shut down. And that was also, if you add the overwork of surviving the streets onto the overwork of a new business and entrepreneur in the world that tells you if you don't work yourself to death, you're not doing it good enough, you know? Been in hospital, exhaustion, realize like this is not really sustainable, right?
Yes.
And I trained as a health coach. But also in 2005, before that, I was part of 200,000 people who held hands around Edinburgh to fight for end of poverty, which is SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals #1, end poverty, right? And it wasn't working. I was an activist in equal rights, especially for Black community, and it wasn't working. So I was like, right, okay. So how do I use this story that I've just shared with you, this development pain and everything that I've learned and used and gone through, I then got qualified in so that I can ethically share it with anybody who works with me. And I just knew I've always been sustainable. I mean, I grew my own food in my garden, freeze dried or dehydrated my herbs and pineapples and all stuff like that. And, you know, I lived a sustainable life because as well, when life calls you to move, if you're tied down with like payments for sofas and cars and houses and stuff, you can't move. So then you lose your life purpose because you couldn't follow it. So for years, I've lived sustainable life, and I'm highly qualified in transformation in your life. But then in 1991, I had a dream of a sustainability center, of a center where humans could learn everything that we've talked about, learn to love themselves, be compassionate with themselves and their environment. And unbeknown to me in 2012, my now husband had a dream of a center for sustainable action to bring sustainable business about as the new way of doing business, as the normal way of doing business. And he wrote a business plan. So I drew a picture in 1991. He wrote a plan in 2012, and we met in 2015. And basically we found out we had the same dream and created the center. So now in the center is a cooperative. So it's co-owned. So members who join are part of the solution. It's an active membership. It's where we are aiming, we're still new, but we're aiming to pull that 98% of micro entrepreneurially run small businesses out of their silos to collectively share expertise and knowledge to support each other's elevation and to become a big mass so that we can then change policies towards small businesses that are more supportive of small business development and growth. And so that we can reach into the green funding. I think it's about 8 billion in green bonds in Europe for business. But as a solo little business, it's so hard for you to access that money. You have no way of understanding how to do that. So the center is pulling everyone together. We're inviting you all to come and join us and be part of the solution, because we know entrepreneurs are fast acting problem solvers. And so by being part of the membership, we support you in your business. We aim, once we've got enough members, to start putting our memberships collective hand in funding pots and distributing it amongst the members to support, again, the sustainable growth of their business and the new way of doing business, one where your health, well-being, that of the planet, and profits are core. So that's what we've built. And doing that journey, my husband and I realized that there was no tool for small businesses to say they were sustainable, prove they were sustainable, or to benchmark off each other. So we've created the SDG assessment app, and you basically go through an assessment process that helps you understand what the sustainable development goals are, helps you understand why, coming under the same umbrella, all the United Nations countries voted for the Sustainable Development Goals. If we all get under the same umbrella, like get on the same page, support each other and collaborate and in a cooperative manner where we all own a solution. My husband and I, this was a gift given to us to bring forth on this earth. So the app as well gives you a chance to commit to a sustainable project, which then can reduce your operational costs. It can reduce your insurance costs. It can attract investment, and it can also attract good talent in your business. And it also, the figure for customers who are looking for sustainable business is now gone up 303% in surveys. So it's like, come join the center, come be supported. Let's transform the way business is done.
So sustainability has, it's quite a broad umbrella, isn't it? It covers so many different aspects. I mean, the environment is one of them, but the way you operate on a human level is another. So what's the kind of biggest challenge to making people understand what sustainability is all about and why they should be considering it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, I recently done a survey, 107 businesswomen, overwhelm. There's so much greenwashing, and that's why our app is also being designed to eliminate the company's ability to greenwash, because of the way that the reporting system works. And yes, you're right, there's so many aspects to the broad term of sustainability, but if you understand the Sustainable Development Goals, you'll see that them 17 goals cover all aspects of sustainability. So that's why we're helping get rid of the overwhelm by sharing knowledge around the Sustainable Development Goals.
And what can you give us some examples of some of the biggest sustainable development goals?
I was like, please don't let me remember all 17. God.
And I'm
if you find 17. Someone that remembers the whole 17, but we definitely know number 17 is partnerships, because that's what we're really strong on. Yeah. Number 3 is one I focus on a lot, is health and well-being. Number 1 is end poverty. We have cleaner cities as well. We have life under the ocean. So as you see, it's all the different elements. And by going through the app, you start to realize what elements you have no idea about, what elements are a risk to your business, and what elements are core to your business. So when you find out, like for me, my coaching is health and well-being, which is sustainable goal number 3. Like my coaching, I can say, is contributing towards that goal. So some people as small business owners are already contributing towards a goal, but they're not using it in their marketing. They're not gaining all the benefits you can gain in this climate from showing people. It's another marketing tool, from showing people that you are addressing a sustainable development goal.
Yes.
And that's what we do as well.
Yes, yes. So there's so many kind of, themes that are coming up for me, and I'm conscious that we've probably got only about another 15 or so minutes. So I want, I think what's coming through for me is this the importance of trusting and surrendering. You trust in your own vision and your own ability to take that next step, and then you kind of surrender that whatever is going to happen is happening for a reason, or however you kind of qualify that surrender. But what's so intriguing is that even in the depth of despair, that you're able to dream and to not be your own dream crusher, because a lot of us aren't we? We have a vision, or think, oh, I could be a windsurfer, or I could be in the Caribbean, and then immediately a voice comes and says you're just being stupid, because how's that ever going to happen, and laying out all the reasons why it's never going to happen. So if somebody's listening to this and are really inspired by your story, do you have a couple of bits of advice on how they can actually not be their own dream crusher?
Well, the first one is like what we said earlier, is you've got to find your own peace of mind and your own self-compassion and healing, because you're not going to listen to the right messages. If you're berating yourself, you're going to pick something else.
Yes.
So it is about being a centered human being. Nourish yourself with good food, give yourself headspace. And another thing that I've often said is I was raised on the street, right? So I missed all of that conditioning that TV, parents, good life, being a good person, doing the right thing. I missed it all because nobody was feeding me and I was starving, fighting for my life. So I missed a lot of conditioning. So I feel I'm a kind of messenger from outside the box, right? Because most of that berating has been information that's been fed to you throughout your growing up, through marketing, through education systems that are bent out of shape, through so many ways, through parents who probably tried their best, but they were bent out of shape before they got to you. So you got to make a decision. What do you want? And you can't make that decision clearly until you take a moment, so ask yourself, what do you want? And if it's like, whatever it is, like I want to live on a Caribbean island, everybody be like, are you crazy? Like them 200 charities and trusts told me, yeah, enjoy windsurfing. But now I'm a qualified windsurfer, rescue diver, and powerboat. I have a powerboat license. Yeah. Who's anybody to tell you what you can and cannot do?
I love
as
that.
long as you're not harming anybody. So my steps are basically get at peace with yourself, learn to love yourself. And that's what I loved about pole dancing. And I do it personally now. And I don't tell people I'm an instructor. I'm just a student. I love it. It strengthens you. So that physical connection to your body through exercise, and the exercise gives you time to be just with you and your body, and find that peace with meditation, releasing all of the crap that doesn't need to be in you and filling it with love and peace. And then you can start to create space to hear. And then if you're creating that space in a calm, light area, and you hear a message, if you hear a voice in your head, yourself coming in going, what do you think? Why do you think? Just say, can you be quiet, please?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just sharp. I've had all sorts of voices in my head. I'm a girl from the streets, starving. I'm not supposed to be multi-award-winning entrepreneur who's, doing crazy, amazing things in life. But that was the plan for me. The plan for me was to open this center. And I fought that plan for a very long time, And when I slipped into the plan for me, it all just flows, And all the stuff before that, I think, were lessons preparing me for this position,
Yeah.
So don't allow yourself. It's self-control. And self-control, it's self-compassion. And self-love. And self-trust. And self-love. You know what I mean? Do the love and peace meditation, because your mind can't chatter when you think in love. Your mind can't chatter when you think in peace. And that's the first step kind of meditation, to just start calming the wild monkey of your mind and just being like, I no longer wish to talk to myself like this. I'm going to honor myself, because you only have one life, you know, and we need you to live it to your full potential, because what gift will you bring? Look at me. If I decided just, and most people would have said, I understand. If I decided to just be, in Scottish, they say a jakey. If I decided just to get drunk and be like, my life's a mess because I was homeless, so forget about it. And people would say, after 7 years on the streets, okay, I understand. I wouldn't be living the awesome life I'm living now, you know?
The other beautiful thing that came through for me is that you mentioned about the ups and downs of life. And, you know, a lot of people who've been through the struggle that you have will become very afraid of actually ever going back. So, you know, so then you kind of, maybe you pull yourself out of this, you know, this pit that you're in, and you somehow create a life that is better. And then you'd be forgiven if you're that person for thinking, well, I don't ever want to go back into that pit, so now I'm going to just hang on to what I've got, which is the opposite of what you said helped you. That, you know, you got this, but was somewhere in you this feeling that I've been there, I know how terrible it is, and that if I get back there, you know, I've already been there, it's not the end of the world? Or was it that you had built this huge self knowledge to know that you're never going to get back there, that you have the ingredients to still make something new that would be better than what you had before? Sorry, it's a very complex question. I'm sorry.
No, I totally get it though. I totally get it. Like, as you're saying it, I'm like, I remember at first thinking, oh my God, I can't go back there. I can't go back there. You know, when I got out of it enough to just be still feeling it on my shoulders, you know? And so there was always the fear of like, what if I end up back there? And I got a coach. Resource yourself. Resource yourself. You can't fix everything yourself. So the minute you identify that you're having that thought process, if you don't want to go back there and you don't want to stay where you are, you want to move forward, but you're bloody scared, and you're scared of going back and you're scared of going forward, get a coach. Get someone who can guide you and allow you. And a coach is about creating space. Again, we've been talking about creating space.
Yes.
A coach, a trained, qualified coach, can hold space for you and allow you to pull out of you the courage and the knowledge that you already have to move forward.
Yeah.
So don't think you have to do it on your own. And yes, you will feel like that. I felt like that for a long time, like, you know, and even when my now husband said, will you move in with me? And I was suffering really bad PTSD at the time. It was like years later, when my life suddenly was starting to feel a bit better, PTSD hit me. I was getting flashbacks every day. I had to leave my work. And so this man, who I'd known for a little time, was saying, come and move in with me. He felt like he wanted to hold space for me, because I'd never actually been supported long enough to break down properly. And so what I'd done is I'd done a canvassing. I phoned my mates and I says, right, I'm going to move in with this guy because I really like him. But if this all goes to pot, can I come and stay on your couch while I rebuild myself for 6 months or something? And I canvassed them. I got 5 people said yes. So I said, okay. So now I know that if I take this step, that even if it didn't work, I'm okay. So sometimes line up the okay, you got your plan B. And then when I stepped forward into that relationship, moving in with him, I let go of all fear, all things that could have held the relationship back and caused issues, because I was too scared to let go completely and surrender, like you said,
Yes.
to this man offering a safe space for me. And I literally broke down, because I hadn't stopped for 40 years. of fighting, hustling, winning awards, building businesses, like boom, 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 because I was like, get me out of the streets. Right? I was moving so fast, the streets would never get me, right? And I literally went to soup. And I haven't actually said this to anybody on any podcast anywhere. I sat and I ate boiled eggs because my granddad used to make me boiled eggs and he used to play a little game with them. And so I sat and ate boiled eggs and I had raging PTSD, and I got a coach and I started to rebuild myself, and I trusted in this man. And now he's my husband, and I'm well, and I learned to receive. Sometimes it's a moment where you surrender, because I'd hustled on my own so long, I didn't know how to receive, but I wanted to receive so much. So in order for me to receive, I had to learn how to receive. And that's what that time gave me, was a moment to completely break down. And I had my boiled eggs and I was kind of just like, there was nothing, you were getting nothing much out of me. I was just eating my boiled eggs and looking at the nice view, and I allowed myself to stop.
That's so beautiful. And just one final question on the receiving bit. What was it you wanted to receive? You needed to receive, and yet you were stopping yourself from receiving. What was stopping you?
Well, so many business owners need to receive income from clients, right? Yeah. You need to get stuff for substance, for life.
Yes.
I want to live in the Caribbean. I'm not going to build an off-grid retreat in the Caribbean with 5 pence. Do you know what I mean? So I needed to learn how to open my receptors for life, for the opportunities, the knowledge, the teachers, everything that would get me up and up and up levels to get where I want to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed to receive. And my receptors were like that. And that experience was the beginning of me receiving.
Beautiful. So my final question to you, and as with my other guests, is that everyone has a vision of what a fulfilled life is for them. And sometimes it can change over time, and yours seems to have kind of evolved. Where you are today, what does it look like for you to be in a fulfilled life?
It looks like today. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm fulfilled. I'm living my dream, and still there's more aspects of the dream that are coming. But yeah, I mean, the center is why I'm here, to bring entrepreneurs together to globally change the way business is done for us and the planet. So it's all good. I got a loving husband, food in my belly, house over me, beautiful, beautiful children, so it's all good.
Sian, thank you so much for coming and sharing your incredible journey. And it's going to be really inspiring to all kinds of people. And if you can get from the streets to where you are today with your attitude and your philosophy, then I think people who have far more than that have no reason to not believe.
Yeah.
Not aspire to something. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we go?
Just thanks for having me, and come join the center.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Sian.